A very, very warm welcome to this wonderful podcast episode on my wonderful new podcast interview guest, Nicole. And I would love to get started with you. So, who is Nicole? Please tell the audience who is Nicole.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on here. I've loved getting to know you so far. And as we discussed a little bit before, I'm always curious what answer is going to come out when I'm asked this. So we'll see where it goes. Um, I spent about a decade in tech and then had a big awakening in 2020. And then in the years following that, I experienced what I describe as like spiritual gifts coming online continually more and more. And
Mhm.
then at the end of last year, I got the cue. I'm sorry, at the start of last year, I got the cue like, okay, it's time for you to now jump out of the tech world and start serving people in the way that you came here to serve them. And the message that I had received was essentially humanity, as a lot of us have now come to understand. At the time when I first started receiving this message, I wasn't a part of these groups, so I had no idea. But essentially, that I came here to help support in this transition of the collective. I think of it as like evolving into a new level of consciousness being embodied in this reality. So there's a number of things that I offer around that, which I'm sure we'll get to towards the end. But at a high, high level, that would be who I am at this stage.
Oh, wow. So, I remember when I literally felt that I can feel energies. And it was like,
Mhm.
I can't describe what happened in that moment. It's so cool. And then it's like it feels like the spiritual guidance take you on a pathway down to something
Yeah.
and you don't know, and it gets more, and then you're scared or you feel awkward or
Yeah.
oh, so I totally get that. So and yeah, is it for you okay if you just like go right into the topic where we want to talk and probably
Yeah.
channel a little bit about?
Yeah,
Because
totally.
I think we're both really curious about, I think it's really our purpose. What can heal? Yeah, what can heal? What is our purpose here on this planet? And
Yeah.
also like we had a little like pre-conversation that there is something in the future and it's changing, it's not like it was like a couple of years ago or 10 years ago when you were like in the corporate world or I was in the corporate world. It's so
Right.
completely
Right.
different how it feels. So, and we had the topic in mind, healing the future. So,
Hmm.
and I am like totally open for what is going to show up. I mean, you're a beautiful channel medium. So I would give you just a space right now for that topic. What's
Hmm.
showing up when we talk about healing the future from now on?
Yeah. I love how much space you're giving me for this one. So I'm gonna actually, I don't know that I've really dove into like the actual big picture that I've come to see, and I'm gonna describe it, and it's gonna, of course, overlap with the way that a lot of other people talk about, this collective awakening that we're going through. But I really want to dive into it from the lens of, like, through all my gifts and through all the messages that I've received, how healing pertains to what we're moving through right now. So if we think about this mass awakening that we're going through right now, it's really, we're bringing the light into the darkness, which means that the shadow and everything that has been hidden and masked through either the masks that we're wearing or the illusions. I know neither you or I are that for talking about politics, but at a high level, illusions that have been also masked at global levels, either country levels or global levels, and both, right? And so we're going through this process of becoming willing, because one big message I remember I got through my journey was, in order to see more, you have to be willing to see more. And I instantly knew that that meant I have to be willing to see not just what I want to see, but I have to be willing to see the things that are really uncomfortable and at times quite disturbing to see, right? Whether that's inside of myself, inside of those that I love, or in the world at large. And so the way I see it is we're moving through this big process where things are coming to light in a variety of ways within ourselves, like as the energetic um, volume is how I always think about it, keeps turning up. everything that's not in alignment to truth is being put on blast, right? So if there's a part of ourselves that we've been denying, we're going to get confronted by it. Oftentimes that starts by something outside of us, right? Like for me, the big one was like repeating relationship dynamics that I still couldn't see, and it just kept hitting me in the face. And every time it hit me in the face, I would see another layer of it. And my job was to just stay willing to see, even when it hurt, even when it was devastating at times, to really look at what was in me, what was being reflected back to me. And so when we talk about healing in the context of that, I really look at it from the lens of like my role is I came in with this extraordinary capacity to be with darkness. And I used to think something was a little bit wrong with me. I was born into some really intense darkness, and from a really, really young age, I wouldn't look away. And I think one of my gifts is being able to find beauty in the darkness, right? So whether I'm on a session with a client and I can feel things in people. And so I'll bring it to the forefront and I'll feel them start to squirm and I'll help them see it from a different lens, right? Because we suppress the things that we don't understand. And so when we have a part of us that we think is bad, dark, evil, I see a part of you that's misunderstood. And so when we think about darkness from the lens of everything comes from the womb of darkness, that means that everything new that emerges, whether it's a part of you that's trying to come through and express or something new for the collective, when it's first born, if we don't understand it and we reject it, it's going to develop in darkness. It's not going to be given the light of love. And so
Mm.
think about if you had a neglected child who spent decades locked in a closet, they're not going to come out really sweet and happy. They're going to come out wanting to fight somebody, right? Like they're going to be scared. They're not going to let you love them. Probably they're going to have a lot of emotions, right? And so these parts of ourselves and the collective psyche and just the world at large, which is an extension of the collective psyche, the most monstrous parts are truly just parts that were pushed into darkness and not given any love. And so, healing of the future, I see it as we're learning what all of the past um, like esoteric teachings and whatnot were talking about when they were talking about alchemy and transmutation, and how it's a matter of like people talk about pushing, like they're fighting demons and they're pushing them away and trying to escape them, and it's like I want to encourage you to take them in and love them. And so I see it as we're going through this evolution of learning what transmutation is, and it has to do with accepting darkness and love and bringing those two things together. So if I had to encapsulate it, I think that's kind of where I would. You gave me a lot of space to play in, and that's my big picture view of it. So thank you for letting me lay that. I don't think I've laid that out fully for anyone, so thank you.
Thank you. It resonates fully with what I feel and perceive. And I remember when I was a kid, I was always afraid of the darkness.
Hmm.
So I remember there was another channel medium, and she told me that I'm not afraid of the darkness, I'm afraid of the light.
Yeah, bringing the light into the darkness and having to actually look at the stuff that's there. Yeah, it's the unknown. It's the fear of the unknown. Think about the fear of the
Yeah.
ocean, right? Like that deep, dark abyss that, like, I don't know what's in there.
Yeah.
Like, it's all kind of a reflection of our fear of the same thing. The unknown. What's in there? What might get me? What will I find out about myself?
Yeah. And I remember that I have was one of my podcast episodes. I have one about shadow work where I talk a
Hmm.
little bit about that meditation I did in my process. And we meet that part, you exile and you think this is bad, and then it turned into a golden angel. So it was
Yeah,
not
you're good.
bad at all. It was just probably
Yeah.
rejected, or you feel like you need to just like exile that because it's bad. And
Hmm.
when we talk about healing the future, I don't know what you think, but I believe if people would do really that work, that could help. So, in so many
Oh, yeah.
ways, on so many levels.
Yeah. And can I touch on that for a second?
Of course.
So the way I see it, like I said before, is like everything that we're seeing is an outcome. It's like a part of the collective psyche, right? So if you think of us as this giant energetic bubble, and we're all in the same way that like my hand is not separate from me, it's a part of me, right? But it's also its own thing. And so within that, we have a collective, and it's like, yes, this person is its own person, but it's also interconnected. Like if you think of, my mind, of course, goes to technology. And so if you think of like, you have a network of IP addresses, right? And each IP address, like the server or whatever it is, right? It's its own thing, but it's also a part of this broader web through the connection. And sometimes we lose that connection, like we go offline, and that's the people that don't know about their gifts and they don't have awareness of all of the extra data that their systems are picking up on, but they've shut down their awareness of them, right? And so when we heal at an individual level, like because of the way that my gifts work, I've actually been able to have a level of awareness of what my own work is doing as a ripple effect through the collective. And I'll even like it's like think of an actual ripple, right? Like when something drops in the water and like it sends out this wave. If you think about it from the context of like you are going to be more connected to people who I think of as like who you would think of as like your soul family, right? Like they're closer to you. You might not know them, but like how you and I have a lot of commonalities, right? So when I do work on myself, you're likely to be one of the souls that gets hit sooner than some of the other souls as a reflection or like as a ripple out effect energetically through the collective. So when you do work, the people that are in like closer energetic proximity to you are being affected by the healing. Like, say you heal stuff around a mother wound. And then there's this ripple effect where the other people that are most impacted by you energetically, suddenly maybe they have a little bit of an easier time getting into that mother wound because there was this ripple effect. And I think people talk about how it's like be the change you wish to see in the world, but if you look at it from again like I look at things from like the technical almost mechanical lens and it's like no, it's very real, like the way that we affect each other. So yes, like it's like if there was one thing that people could focus on and have the biggest impact on the trajectory of our collective, hands down I would say it's integration of these aspects of yourself that you've pushed out, because as you do that, those aspects flip into the gift expression and there's a ripple effect of that both in the internal realm and in the external, because now the way you're showing up is different too.
So, what was like coming up into my mind that I feel like I love to grow and I love to change and I love to
Mhm.
explore things. And I don't know if there are like probably especially women outside who have the same that they dive into that energy work. And I remember that I don't know, it happened two, three, four times. I was in a romantic relationship and I developed, or whatever you want to call. So I just like, had an interest for something and wanted to dive deeper. And then it was like, I felt like that my partner did not much like that. We
Mhm.
can talk about romantic relationships, we can talk about friendships, we can about colleagues or partners, like parents, whatever. So when there are people outside and they believe in that healing process and they do the work, and I can speak it out of experience, it's not fun at all
Yeah.
sometimes.
Well, it can be. I will say that. I've gotten to a point where I actually really enjoy it. So we can
And
dive into that at some point too.
yeah, so when they feel like they do not have any impact because everyone is like saying what you do is weird.
Mhm.
Let's
Yeah.
say it like this. Do you have
Yeah.
an advice or something that could help them to keep on going?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I want to speak to on that, first of all, I grew up in a household like that where like it was demonized. Like I had to
Wow.
walk through, and I've actually come to understand that in order for us to walk in, like to step into our true dharmic path, you have to unlock it. And the way that you unlock it is through your deepest, deepest fears. So the things that you grew up believing, like, I'm not allowed to be that thing, right? And so for me, like, my walking through the fire to unlock this path was being willing to be demonized by my own mother, by my extended family, and not all of them, right? Like I have one family member that was actually the target of a lot of the demonizing. Um, who like I've always felt very close to that. That's my grandmother. And
Wow.
I've actually heard of that, like generationally, like big time spiritual gifting, kind of skipping a generation. Like it's in movies. You've seen it in different movies and such. But I actually had a channeling session recently that taps on this that I want to share a little bit from. And it was a channeling session where there's one person I've talked about her. Her name's Katie. I talk about her in some of my posts where we joke that like we were like the little Matildas when we were little, but like we had to grow up in ice, like we didn't have each other back then, but now it's like we get to talk the same language. And she's the only person that I go to for channeling. Partly because I can read people so deeply that I'll see people's projections onto me as they're channeling for me, and that's can be hurtful, it can be uncomfortable, it can be any number of things. But I remember with her specifically on our very last session, which was just a week or so ago now, that session coincided with me unlocking an even deeper layer of my own gifts. And a big part of what I was walking through was, um, I essentially learned how to shut all of that out, and I'm learning how to open myself back up to all of it because as Katie channeled on our session, she was like, "Well, imagine you have this little kid who knows things that like you shouldn't know that. Like a little your child shouldn't know that. Like it's weird, right?" And so I kind of mentioned this before, but like when we don't understand things, we often demonize them. And so I took on these projections that like something must be wrong with me and I must be bad. And apparently I hurt people also because my experience was when I speak truth, it hurts people because I didn't know this at the time, but people don't want to look at themselves, right? It's painful. So then if you're doing the work, so say now we're bringing it back to the relationship, that was more of like a child dynamic that I experienced, but bringing it back to a relationship, when you start diving into your work and you start coming out with these big reflections on yourself and you're starting to understand who you are to deeper levels and you're really being brave about it, right? It's going to trigger somebody that isn't that way. It's going to trigger someone that feels um, like, oh gosh, now that they're going down this path, like, do they expect me? And
Yeah,
it's
she's
usually,
getting crazy.
yeah, it's not always conscious. Sometimes it's this unconscious thing of like, they want to vilify you before they become the target.
And do you think, in my case, I know that I have like trauma background and I have
Mhm.
probably a huge abandonment wound
Yeah.
when you're really coming closer to the core and why you're here on this planet, then, in German we say the air gets thinner.
Mhm.
So,
Or thicker. Sometimes
yeah,
I
or
feel like it gets
thicker like
thicker, like
that,
it's like a little hard to breathe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you believe that it could be also like a really good sign? So that you're on
Well,
the
here's
right path?
you remember how it's like you can enjoy it because you were like it's not very enjoyable, right? And I want to
No,
talk about, and this kind of goes back to how there's so many things I want to touch on right now. I'm like seeing so
don't
many
worry,
different
just
aspects of our
get
conversation.
time.
So, you know how we talked about like our deepest wounds are going to, if we like, it's like the further into that wound we go in the transmutation process,
Mhm.
the more intense the gifts are that you have access to.
Wow, that's wow.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Once I realized that it was maybe mid 2024, and I remember like it hit me like a ton of bricks because I was in
Mhm.
process of moving through alchemization of something that really gave me the ick about myself. But as I was moving through it, I started getting to this it was like I started seeing what I was unlocking within myself too, and I started seeing
Mhm.
how it was the other side of the same coin, right?
Mhm.
So in this context, let's now also go back to how I said one of my biggest wounds was I thought I was bad, like dark,
Mhm.
evil,
Yeah.
because that was projected onto me out of fear, right? I now see that out of fear. But the message I felt was like, there must be something like sick and twisted about me that I need to hide from the world. And as I've walked through alchemizing that, I've realized like the people, if you go on the rebirth page and you look at the testimonials, and remember, like I just launched into this work last year, and last year I also moved across the country. I did multiple apprenticeships. I did all kinds of other stuff. So, really starting, I kind of only started like in a real way around last fall. So it hasn't been that long, but it's like as soon as I stepped into this work and was willing, I saw that I have a huge superpower. So when people come onto my sessions, one of the biggest healing things, it's funny because sometimes I want to be like, it's really simple. It's really simple, like what I'm offering people. And it's the experience of being met with unconditional love.
Mhm.
I'm bringing the parts of you that you've been afraid of because you came to believe that those parts of you were bad or you couldn't show the world them or you would be rejected or whatever else, right? Like I'm bringing them to the surface, but I'm holding you in this bubble of unconditional love. And sometimes unconditional love is also like, I'm going to call you on things that you're not, I can see that you're like, no, that doesn't exist right there, right? And so part of unconditional love is I want what's best for you. And that means like a good mother is going to not just coddle you, they're going to also help you rise into who you came here to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go on Instagram, there's like Nicole Eloise, and you have underlined two times, and you have also the rebirth community, so you can
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
more get to know more about your work. And this is so funny because I feel like sometimes the more we do our inner work and the more we dive deeper, the more we are able to see more like in our clients, the people we work with. So in my case, it was like I was kind of a performance junkie in the past. I was
Hmm.
very controlled, I was very structured, and I needed to split apart, well, my work right now, because it's
Hmm.
for artists, healers, and highly sensitive people. So I was always a very creative person, um, highly sensitive to the full, and I had to split that apart because it wasn't welcome. So I made myself strong with doing Ironman triathlon. So good solution to
Hmm.
that point, to making
Yeah.
myself strong. I remember I was a teenager and I said, I don't want to feel anymore. So I made
Hmm.
myself like this. And then around about doesn't matter, but years ago I smashed my kneecap on Kauai. I was not able to run anymore, to perform anymore, to live that identity, even if I did no races anymore. But it shaped me for 20, 25 years. So it's a very, very
Yeah.
long time. And then life called me and said, hey, there are parts of you. And then I started to do the work um, to I call it my inner team to get those guys back together that I can come into my full power and even so the
Yeah.
integration like of the shadow parts and that highly sensitivity is not nothing bad at all because then you can
Hmm.
sense and you can feel and but I also have me go dive deeper into that, romantic like relationship thing. I had a guy and I always had his voice inside of me saying, I miss you. So we're not together
Hmm.
anymore. And it was
Yeah.
like around about 2 years later, he told me, oh, I figured out I miss you. And I said, I
Yeah.
knew that 2 years before because I heard the voice. So it's like feeling anything that is like split apart, suppressed, people don't want to feel like to,
Yeah.
yeah, get that back if they want to, if they're like
Yeah.
open to what's really there and what's want to
Hmm.
show. So I'm like kind of a translator for those parts.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many things I relate to in what you just said too. So first of all, like growing up, I have a vivid memory of my mother. I remember she had a boyfriend over and it was just her and I like in our home. So when there was a boyfriend over, it was just like me and then her and the boyfriend. And so I'm like hanging out in my room and I go out to like ask her something. And I remember I like all I remember her is her being like she said something and I must have gotten really like I think I remember feeling hurt, but I don't remember what it was. It was this feeling of like she was choosing to almost like show off for him and that I didn't matter in that moment. And I think I responded in a way where I was kind of like, oh, like that hurt. I don't
Yeah.
know what I did though. I was a kid. And I just remember her saying, oh, I forget that you're sensitive. And it's like, when did that become a bad thing? But here's what I also know. The people who have said that to me, as I've woken up more and more, I can feel that those are the same people that they like punish their own sensitivity
Yeah, exactly.
and
Exactly.
they're afraid of it to your point. And I also just want to touch on how you were talking about being able to feel what your ex was feeling and maybe suppressing, right? So there's all this stuff on Instagram that goes around and like I'm for it and I just want to like unpack it a layer further in the context of what you said. So there's all this stuff that says, there's a lot of women who are awakening, who I believe a lot of us were like, that we trained lifetimes in these arts and in these understandings and we're just awakening to them like, the seed always contained the flower, but the flower had to come to life, right?
Yes.
And an aspect of what the women that I think are a part of that group are saying is like we're starting to wake up and be like, oh, hey, like when you have a lot of healing energy and creationary energy, you also tend to have like it goes hand in hand with having a lot of sexual energy within you. And so there's a lot of women that are going from myself included, and I've been very open about this, who are going from having been you know, really, I mean, it ranged, right? Sometimes it was promiscuity. Sometimes it was just like always needing to be with a man to have an outlet for that energy because we weren't taught that it's meant for like healing and creation and funneling it intentionally. But another layer that I just want to touch on is how when we get in such close connection with someone where we're not just physically engaged, but we are energetically very engaged with them. The way I've come to understand it, and this kind of I came into this understanding by way of I study everyone that's around me. Like it's just always been a part of my design, right? And so when I was with my last partner, he had challenges, and I won't go super into depth, but just at a high level, and I've talked about this a little bit too. He had challenges around still feeling a level of like commitment or devotion to his ex-wife. And it's like I
Yeah.
could see now there's aspects that where there's accountability and then there's things that were really going on. And I was always trying to help him understand what was going on and not just blame him. But then there's also like there needs to be accountability to do something about it, right? But one of the things that I learned through watching and being able to perceive things at like an energetic level as well as what people are consciously aware of and being able to feel the different people's like underlying emotions in this context is like we get a cord that's developed, right? And that cord doesn't just go away. That cord is still there after we've separated from the person. So it's kind of like the can with the string and it's
Yeah.
like the further away from them you get, which includes like not ruminating on them, like there's different things that we can do to basically let the energetic cord begin to like wither and have less like charge traveling through it is how I think of it. So it'll be less loud for you.
Mhm.
Um, but I just think it's such an important thing that like it's not just about so people will talk about like you can do yoni steaming, but it's like, yes, there's
Yeah.
also really digesting. Like this is the best thing I've found for those cords, right? And I'm saying this for you, I'm saying this for anyone that's watching, and I'm saying this to remind myself too. After we go through a breakup or a friend breakup or whatever it is, one of the most crucial things that I've found to help that cord really wither away, sort of, if we're choosing for that to happen, is feel all of the feelings that you've been trying not to feel. The anger, especially, that's the biggest
Yes.
area that I find people don't want to feel the anger because then they feel like they're giving the person power, which absolutely not. Sorry, I know we're trying not to use curse words. Hopefully, like that.
Sorry, no worries.
I did warn you. Um, it's like we have to feel the anger no matter how not directed towards the person. We have to create an intentional space. I like adding playlists to it, and this is where we get into the realm of it doesn't have to be like hard. It can be fun. Like
Yeah.
I go into like sexy villain mode when I'm like, I'm gonna have a rage release, right? Because I can feel that. And I actually felt this recently where I was like, oh, there's something more in there still around some of the stuff with my last partnership, even though I spent like 2 months like purging and purging. But that was also the first time in my adult life, at least, that I had really opened myself up to someone. And so the way that I experienced the feeling of betrayal just hit such deep wounds. But if I had to give people like one, well, I'm going to make it actually a twofold recommendation around when we have a cord like that that we actually don't want to have anymore. It's create intentional space for grief releases
Yeah.
and rage releases. And usually you want to do rage release and then it'll kind of naturally shift into a grief release. And just kind of keep doing it until you're like, there's kind of nothing left in there, you know? But
Mhm.
otherwise, there's a charge still. And so if they say something
Yeah.
to us, it can trigger us. And it's kind of like when our contract ends, is when we've resolved all of the charge that they were meant to trigger up with inside of us, right? Like they're not just because we have a lot of charge with them doesn't mean they're our divine counterpart. It means that they were designed to help us connect with parts of ourselves that were still hurting.
Yeah. So when we talk about healing the future, I do think that relationships in any kind of way can support the process.
Mm.
And I also realized that when we talk about creativity, the title of the podcast is Creativity, Empathy, Flow,
Hmm.
that in that creative process, or what could support the creative process as well, is our sexual energy.
Yeah.
So when I was in that, I call it playfully triathlon business, I was
Hmm.
very much in my masculine energy. Then I became
Yeah.
a yoga teacher, and I really can saw that it switched completely.
Yeah.
Then I smashed my right kneecap, which was so funny. Then I thought, okay, now I can explore more my left side, my yin part. It's like so, like I feel like that when we talk about healing, Nicole, that we are here to heal and we are guided and we are like there. I feel like there's a inner force inside of me. I don't know if you can feel it right now, that wants to heal, and it guides me along the way all day long. And also when we talk about shadow parts and relationships, that we are aware of our sexual energy and how
Yeah.
strong that can be, and really, being careful with whom you really want to connect.
Hmm.
Of course, like clearing, cleansing, or just like put awareness probably into that. And
Yeah.
I had a German episode about the womb, and we were
Hmm.
talking about the yoni steaming, but maybe there are women outside, they don't know what that is. So could you please explain that a little, that if women want to do that, how they can do that?
Yeah. Yeah, and interestingly, one thing I will say is like there are certain areas that for me I've been more resistant to than others while having awareness of it. And yoni steaming is one of those things, like I always like being really transparent. Like I don't ever want to be like, I'm perfect at everything. So I want to also call this out specifically. I've struggled to, I have the herbs. I've done it before. I've had profound, like I'll get visions. I'll have really profound experiences. But sexual wounding, trauma, shame is, it kind of goes hand in hand with that thing of like me thinking that I'm dark and bad, which I think a lot of us carry, right? So I'm going to talk about it, but I also don't want to talk about it and act like I'm doing this all the time and I'm doing it perfectly. But what I will talk about is how, and I actually want to talk about this from a slightly different lens from how other people would talk about it. So the first time I started thinking in this lens was when my friend Jess, who I've also referenced a number of times in some of my posts, she said, it's all about intention. Sometimes, like she does hair, and so she had, if I'm remembering correctly, some sage just sitting on something on her, like the stylist little
Yes.
space, whatever they have. And so she would be like, I can't always whip out the sage and sage the space, but she'll be talking to a client and like the energy will get a little bit hectic or heavy or whatever. And she was like, I'll just look at the sage and have the intention of clearing the space. And the first time she said that, I was like, yeah, that makes total sense. But this was years ago, and I've spent a few years unpacking it since then. And what I want to talk about with the yoni steaming is gonna also bleed into basically everything else that we think about when we think of rituals and or even what people refer to as spells and witchcraft. And so yoni steaming is a beautiful way to connect with your womb. And the idea is that when we're steaming those herbs, um, we are, I mean, we're like nourishing that part of our body. We're also clearing energetically. And I also just think of it as a way to direct, and this is where I have resistance, and I can literally feel it while I'm talking about it.
Yes.
Direct our energy to connect with our womb space. And for me, I have an easy time connecting with my heart. I'm getting there with my solar plexus, my throat chakra, I'm getting there, my third eye, like we're pretty good up here and the heart. But for me specifically, and I also want to share this in case other people feel this way, like we hold a lot of power there, as I'm sure you know. And I also did a lot of disconnecting from that part of me. And in one of my former channeling sessions, this even came up where she was like, it's almost like at that time I was going through a bunch of physical body experiences and I was trying to understand what was going on. She was like, it's kind of like your womb's like tapping the mic and is like, is this thing on? Like trying to come online.
Mhm.
So I love that this came up because honestly, it's something that like as I'm laying in bed at night, like I keep thinking to myself, like, it's time to start getting a bit more devoted to my womb because like I said, like that's how we unlock so much of our power. So I think this is going to be one of my homework assignments coming off of this call. But if anyone wants to check it out, you can either like on Etsy is great, but also if you want just like an easy go-to reputable store, you can go to Four Visions. They have an easy one if people are kind of, I know sometimes people when they're first venturing into this stuff, they want to kind of play it safe. So I'll also drop that for people.
Yeah, and I discovered a lot in the last years. Also, like I'm wearing much more long skirts
Hmm.
and walk barefoot and really connect with nature. To have very easy, like my hand on my lower belly to feel
Hmm.
that. Also, like the sacral chakra, which is so
Hmm.
funny because I'm in human design, I'm a manifesting generator and I have a sacral
Oh yeah.
authority. But if I'm not
Hmm.
connected to that, I can't make really good decisions for myself because
Right.
I'm so much in the emotions of other people. So I'm
Hmm.
not clear. So I exercise that a lot. Also, my
Hmm.
root chakra, which is connected, to financial abundance and like
Yeah.
feeling really safe inside of me. And I can say that in my case, it really takes time that you slowly reconnect. And that's a really, really nice journey, but it can be also really challenging. And I always say that, I'm a coach, I'm not a therapist. So if you feel like you need therapy in, I don't know, specific areas of your life, then please go for someone who is really an expert. And with my podcast, I just want to give like, yeah, inspiring tips, whatever people can
Hmm.
do or do their own research. This is really important for me
Yeah.
that you really checking up, okay, like a buffet, what is it what I really want to eat? What is it what I can digest? And it also can change and you can rearrange that over time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, to have a look at that when we talk about healing the future, I feel like that energetically, it's just like what I perceive energetically that a lots of people suppress that sexual energy or they're
Yeah.
taught that it's bad. So we have
Yeah.
like a label on it. And when we go back to like what especially happened to women and witchcraft and stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, that we need to put that out of the shadow again into the light and
Hmm.
and really also to rearrange what we're taught as kids, what is like a man and a woman, or how do I behave as a woman or a man. Because for
Yeah.
me it's just like it feels like it's just a spot somewhere, it's not who we really are. Is it how it feels like?
Yeah. And can I actually touch on there's an aspect of what you just said that I was thinking about between last night and this morning.